Hey everyone, it's 2024. Happy New Year. This is my first video and you're welcome to the channel. I am Cilla Si Travis, and in today's video I'll be showing you how to draft and sew this beautiful drop shoulder button down shirt. Okay, before we get into it, do make sure you subscribe to the channel and also make sure you like and leave a comment for me before you leave. Come on guys, it's 2024, be nice. Okay, without further ado, let's jump right into it. Mark down 2 inches from the top of your pattern paper and square out a horizontal line. This is the top line. The next step would be to mark out the portion for the button extension. Now this shirt is going to have a 1-inch button extension. So to create that 1-inch extension, I'm going to mark in 3 inches from the edge of the paper and then square across a vertical line. This vertical line is the center line for both the front and the back, okay? Now from this vertical line, I'm going to mark out my 1-inch button extension. So after marking out the 1-inch button extension, I'm still going to have 2 inches. This remaining 2 inches is going to be the seam allowance to create a double fold that will cover the raw edge of the button extension, okay? Also note that you can use 3/4 of an inch as your button extension. So if you're going to use 3/4 of an inch, that means the allowance you need for the to create the button extension together with the seam allowance should be about 2¼ inches instead of 3 inches. So if you're using 1 inch, you need to leave 3 inches space. If you're using 3/4 of an inch, you need to leave 2¼ inches space. Now I'm going to go ahead and fold in this allowance along the center line. Okay, so you want to put this portion on fold like so. From the top line, I'm going to mark down the length of the crop top. Most crop top usually sit around the natural waistline. There are some crop top that sit few inches above the natural waistline, while there are some crop top that also sit below the natural waistline. Now, what I'm going for should sit just a little bit below the natural waistline, okay? So to get this length, I'm going to use my back waist length plus 1/2 of an inch. So from the top line, I'm going to mark down my back waist length plus 1/2 of an inch. This for me is 16½ inches, and then I'm going to square across. Now I'm going to flip my pattern paper to the other side and then extend that horizontal line I just drew to the allowance for the button extension. Now because this is a loose fitted top with a drop shoulder, I'm going to use the distance from the highest point of my shoulder to my bust point as my armhole depth, okay? So you want the armhole of this top to be lower than your normal basic armhole because it's a drop shoulder for one, and also it is loose fitted. So measuring down from the top line, I'm going to mark down the distance from the highest point of my shoulder to my bust point and then square across our horizontal line. Now this horizontal line becomes the bust line as well as the armhole depth for this top. Now from the center line, I'm going to mark in my bust divided by 4 plus 1¾ inches for ease. Okay, so you can go ahead and use 2 inches, and you can go ahead and also use 1½ inches, but I recommend you use 1¾ inches or 2 inches. Okay, so from this point, I'm going to square a line to the waistline like so. Now to create the side seam, you can either come in from this vertical line on the waistline with 1/2 of an inch, or you could leave it straight, or you can come in with 1 inch. So I want this top to be just a little bit tapered at the waistline. Okay, so I came in from the side seam line 1 inch. So I'm going to connect both points together. You can draw a straight line to connect both points together, but I'm going to use a slight curve to connect both points together. Okay. To create the neckline, I'm going to use 2 3/4 inches as my neckline width for both the front and the back. You can use anything from 2.5 inches at least to 3 inches. But remember, this top is going to have a collar, so I'm going to use 2 3/4 inches. Now the neckline depth for the back is 3/4 inch. So from the top line, I'm going to mark down 3/4 inch and then use my French curve to connect both points together to form the back neckline. For the front neckline depth, I'm going to mark down from the top line 3 inches. So you can use anything from 3 inches to 3.5 inches to create your front neckline. Okay, so using this dimension, I'll go ahead and draw out my front neckline like so. From this point, you want to mark down your shoulder slope. So for the shoulder slope, I'm using 1.5 inches. So I'm going to square a short horizontal line. So this is my shoulder slope line, okay? Next, I'm going to take my shoulder width measurement, which is 5 inches, and then place this 5 inches on the neck point like so, and then pivot this 5 inches until it touches this short horizontal guideline. Next, I'm going to connect both points together. But once I get to the point on the short horizontal guideline, I'm going to extend this line with 2 inches. Remember, this top is a drop shoulder. So extending this line 2 inches is going to create that minimum drop shoulder effect. So that means my shoulder width measurement has increased from 5 inches to 7 inches. Next, I'm going to square a line from the shoulder point to meet the bust line. To create the back armhole, I'm going to mark the midpoint of this vertical line and come in with 1/4 inch. Using my French curve, I'll go ahead and draw out the back armhole. Now for the front armhole, you want to come in from the midpoint, anything from 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch. I'm going to come in with 5/8 inch. Okay, the goal here is that you don't want the front armhole to be too deep because this is a drop shoulder top and it's loose fitted. So it doesn't really matter if the armhole is deep or if it's, you know, a bit shallow. Okay. Now using my French curve, I'm going to connect to create the front armhole. All right, basically you can leave your top like this. It is good to go if this is the style you want to go for. But this is a shirt, and we all know that most of the standard shirt usually has the back shoulder seam, you know, overlapping to the front. Okay, now to create that overlapping effect, we'll need to take out of the front shoulder seam and add it to the back. So from the neck point along the front neckline, I'm going to mark down 1 inch. I'm going to come to the middle of the shoulder seam and mark down 1 inch, and then connect this 2 points together until it touches the front armhole like so. Now you want to trace out this portion. Okay, you want to trace it out and then flip it over and then attach it to the back shoulder seam. So to do this, I'm going to slip a piece of paper onto my pattern and then trace out this portion. So this is a trace portion. Now you want to flip it over like so and then attach it to the back shoulder seam. So I'm just going to carefully flip it in place and then trace out the outline to the back of the bodice like so. All right, do make sure after attaching the portion, you want to blend in the armhole and also blend in the neckline to have a smooth transition. Now that this is done, I'll go ahead and trace out the back of the bodice to a fresh pattern paper. And then add in my seam allowance and cut out the back pattern, okay? So you also want to place a notch to let you know where the back neckline stops. To finish off the front of the bodice, I'm going to measure in my nip to nip measurement divided by 2 plus half of an inch. So this for me is 4¼ inches. I'm going to mark it there. From this point, I'm going to come down half of an inch. Okay, this is the second option for the hem of the front. So you can either leave it straight or you can come down half of an inch and then blend this point to the side seam. Okay, but for me, I will be coming down with 1 inch from the waistline like so, and then I'm going to draw a line blending it to the side seam like so. You want to make sure the hem is well blended like so. Next, flip open the button extension and extend the front neckline to meet the button extension. Once this is done, you want to slip in a fresh pattern paper and trace out the front pattern just as you see me doing right now. Okay, kindly pay attention to the areas I'm tracing out. Once this is done, you want to add in your seam allowance to the neckline, to the shoulder seam, to the armhole, to your side seam, and to the hem. And then you want to fold in the button extension like so. So create that double fold at the button extension before cutting out the pattern. So guys, I have the front and the back bodice ready to go. And as you know, this is a shirt, so you need to draft the sleeve for the drop shoulder shirt. And also you need to draft the collar and the collar stand. But I've done this on a separate video, which I'm going to leave the link on my description, okay? For this shirt, I will be going with the short sleeve. So I'll go ahead and trace the short sleeve to a fresh pattern paper and then transfer all this pattern to my fabric. So the fabric I'm working with is just 1 yard. Normally you're supposed to cut your pattern along the lengthwise grain, but because this is 1 yard, I'm going to cut the pattern along the crosswise grain, okay? So I just have to figure out a way to manage so I can get all the pieces. As I said previously, there is a separate video on how to cut and sew the collar and the collar band. So to make sure you check that out. On this video, I'll just be showing you how to join the pieces together, attach the sleeve, fix my buttons, and that's it. So right now, I'm going to start with the front of the shirt. So the first thing you want to do is to place the button extension on fold. So first you want to fold in 1 inch and give it a good press, and then go ahead and fold in the second 1 inch and give it a good press, and then you want to take this to your sewing machine and sew. Okay, next I'm going to be joining the back and the front together with right side facing right side. You want to join both pieces together at the shoulder seam. So first of all, I would advise you pin this, especially if you're working with a lightweight fabric. You want to pin it together before taking it to your sewing machine to sew. But if you think you can pull this through without pinning it in place, then go ahead. Now, after sewing the shoulder seam, you want to take this to your overlocker and just finish the edge of the roll seam, and then give that shoulder seam a good press before you move on to the next stage. The next step is to attach the sleeve. So I've gone ahead to sew the hem of the sleeve, as you can see. Now I'm going to place the sleeve on fold like so. And then I'm going to place a notch just right in the middle of the sleeve edge. Now for the placement of the sleeve at the armhole, you want to measure from the shoulder seam toward the back armhole 1 inch, and then place a notch right at that 1 inch point. Now you want to take your sleeve just at the notched point and place it at the notch point on the armhole, and then pin it in place. Now you want to take the underarm of the sleeve and pin it to the underarm of the back armhole. And from this point, you want to pin all the way to the middle of that notch point of the sleeve. Next, you want to repeat the same process for the front armhole. Start from the underarm and pin all the way to the notched point of the sleeve. Once this is done, you want to take this to your sewing machine and sew. So now that I'm done attaching the sleeve, I'm going to take this to my overlocker and finish the raw edge of that armhole. Then once that is done, I'm going to give it a good press, and the next step would be to join the front and the back at the side seam. Now, after joining the side seam, I'm going to finish the raw edge of the side seam with my overlocker and also finish the hem of the shirt with my overlocker. So right now, I'm just doing a single fold of 1/2 inch at the hem of the shirt. Now I'm going to take this to my ironing table and give it a good press, and then we'll move to the next stage, which is attaching the collar to the shirt. Now to attach the collar, you want to take the center back of the collar. There's a notch point there, and then you want to attach it to the center back of the shirt neckline. And then you want to take the center front of the shirt and attach it to the center front of the collar and pin it in place. Repeat the same process for the other side. And then you can go ahead and pin all around the collar to the shirt. Now I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and sew. And lastly, I'm going to top stitch the folded edge of the collar band to the neckline of the shirt. I would say this is the most challenging part when it comes to sewing a shirt. Okay, you know, getting your seam to look perfectly aligned at the other side is one very challenging and tricky thing to do. So I would say you need some level of experience to be able to pull this through perfectly. Once I'm done sewing the collar, I'm going to take this to my ironing table and give the shirt a good press all over. And then I'll go ahead and fix the buttonhole and the buttons off camera, but I'll come back to explain to you how to do the button placement. Now for the button placement, the first button should be seated on your button extension right in the middle of the collar band. Now for the last button, you can decide to go upward 1 to 3 inches from the hem of the shirt. The right thing to do here is to divide the distance from the first button to the last button into sections of, let's say, 3 to 3.5 inches apart. But I was not able to get 3 or 3.5 inches apart correctly. So what I did, I came down from the first button 2 inches to get the placement for the second button. Now I divide the distance from the second button to the last button with a spacing of 3.5 inches apart. So in total, I was able to seat 5 buttons on this crop shirt. Yeah guys, this brings us to the end of this video. I hope you find it helpful. If you do, remember to leave a comment, like this video, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you on my next one. Bye bye.